Ang headline inflation, ang pagtaas ng presyo ng mga produkto at serbisyo sa bansa ay bumilis sa antas na 6.1% nitong Hunyo 2022. Lumiliit yung purchasing power ng pera natin, ng piso, no, para bumili ng goods and services.
6.1? I think I will have to disagree with that number.
We are not that high. We have crossed our targets were less 4% or less. Unfortunately, it looks like we may cross that threshold. Tatawid tayo sa 4%. We are not looking specifically to the exchange rates now. What we are targeting is the inflation rate. So that's what we are doing. The forces that have pushed the commodity prices up are, again, beyond our control.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Sean Yao. The big story tonight.
We begin tonight with inflation accelerating further in June, driven by runaway food and transportation costs.
Tonight's big number, 6.1%. That is the rate of price increases recorded last month, marking the highest level in over 3 years. This is higher than the 5.4% posted in May and the 3.7% recorded in June of 2021. The uptrend was mainly driven by chicken and rice prices. Transport inflation jumped 17.1% due to consecutive weeks of oil price hikes. But the Statistics Bureau warned that there is more pain to come.
We are still seeing increases in prices. If you will notice, mula January hanggang June, medyo very steep yung slope every month, no? So based on our monitoring, well, there are expectations that these prices, particularly the food prices, would still move upward. Thank you.
Despite this, President Bongbong Marcos appears unconvinced of the June inflation print. After presiding over his first cabinet meeting, Marcos told the press that he disagrees that inflation reached 6.1% last month. He said it could not have been that high. He admits, however, the country's inflation may have reached the 4% target level due to factors that are beyond government's control.
I think that I will have to disagree with that number. We are not that high. Our targets were less 4% or less. Unfortunately, it looks like we may cross that threshold. Tatawid tayo sa 4%. We are not looking specifically to the exchange rates now. What we are talking about, what we are targeting is the inflation rate. The increase in commodity prices are again something that happens that the forces that have pushed the commodity prices up are again beyond our control.
How is government planning to tame rising prices of commodities?
To give us some answers, we have with us on the show One News's business editor, Regina Lay. She is joining us live tonight via Zoom. Hi, Regina. Regina, I don't know about not feeling 6.1%. Robbie, would you agree with me? I feel it. I also feel the pressure on chicken supply.
Yeah, I certainly, I think everybody had the same reaction, diba? But Reg, I mean, not to split hairs here on the actual number, I think bottom line, the president did acknowledge the bottom line here. Prices are rising, but just to the point of we could not have been that high. What might be a basis that he could stand on, or what might he hope to see further in data that could give us some sort of comfort that no, maybe there's a way to adjust, at least so we know our baseline?
Hi, Robbie. Hi, Sean. Look, I can't speak for him. I'm not sure exactly why he's doubting the numbers, but I can tell you that the Philippine Statistics Agency is a highly reliable bureau, and they did, by the way, respond to the president saying that it stands by its report. Perhaps the president was just shocked at how high it is now. I mean, remember, we did start the year at just 3.2%, and 6 short months later, we're nearly double that. I will also point out that the president was right about one thing, which is that most of the inflation we're seeing is imported. In other words, it's a result of the ongoing war in Ukraine and runaway oil prices. It's not anything that we did wrong per se. Conversely, what that means is that it's going to be harder to tame prices because, we import most of our fuel, most of our oil, and things like fertilizers and animal feeds, which we need in agriculture. So yes, in a way, these are all factors that are beyond our control for now, right? The only real long-term solution to inflation that we're talking about here is to become more self-sufficient with food, which I think the new president is fully aware of. That's why he says agri is his quote-unquote single and highest priority for now.
Right. However, even if we successfully do ensure some sort of food security by bumping up our local agri-sector, Reg, there would be some sort of delay. So in the meantime, we will be suffering, and normal Filipinos would feel the pain of rising costs every single day. What policy tools are with the government for them to be able to, stymie that a little or cushion the impact a bit?
Sean, I did not get anything from the press briefing that he gave this afternoon, to be completely honest. It sounds like they are still talking about it. He did give an indication a strong indication, I should say, that he is not really in favor of more importation in the long run. President Marcos did point out that importation is usually just used as a price stabilization measure in the past, meaning it was only ever used in times of crises, and that he said that he prefers that we import, quote unquote, as little as possible moving forward. But of course, again, that's a long-term solution. For now, because the supply is still insufficient, he did acknowledge that we will have to continue importing pork and chicken. You mentioned in your intro that chicken prices are just gone a little out of control now. Let me point out that that's one of the things that the Statistics Agency also mentioned in this morning's briefing. Before, we were only talking about pork prices, and now chicken has slowly started weaving its way into the narrative. Even the fast food outlets, I don't know if you guys have noticed, you might have noticed some of the outlets are either running short on chicken or the pieces are getting smaller, apparently.
I know we have to, Reg, we have to wrap this up. Yeah, but really quickly, can you give us the correlation? Because we did hear in the soundbite from President Marcos. He said that, he's not minding so much, the weakness of the peso. But this, as we know, of course, that has a big impact on inflation numbers. Can you talk us through that just really quickly?
Yes, so the peso obviously is at a near 17-year low now, but he is consistent in saying that the Banco Central is not minding the peso exchange, the foreign exchange at the moment, because their sole focus is on taming inflation. Remember, the Banco Central has, as a policy tool, the interest rates in order to control inflation. When inflation is high, it means there's so much economic activity, there's a lot of buying and selling, so they raise interest rates to try to tamp down some of that and encourage more people to save instead of taking out loans to spend, right? So that's one policy tool that they use. But look, the Banco Central has been consistent in saying that they will, that they don't mind the very weak peso at the moment. It's close at 55.23 to the dollar today. It's hurting our importation even more, obviously, because you pay more for everything that you import, fertilizer, fuel, whatever that may be, animal feeds, right, and so on and so forth. So it might aggravate inflation in the coming months, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, maraming salamat, Reg. The business editor for One News, Regina Lay.
Join us in the conversation. Our big question tonight: saan aabot ang 100 pesos mo? Share your thoughts on our Facebook and YouTube live stream or post a tweet with the hashtag #TheBigStory. We'll read some of your comments a little later on in the program.
After the break, we have a member of Marcos' cabinet joining us in the show. He will give us the details on the president's first cabinet meeting and more about their plan of action to address the soaring prices of goods. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
My father built more and better roads, produced more rice than all administrations before his. President Rodrigo Roa Duterte built more and better than all the administrations succeeding my father's. Much has been built, and so well, that the economic dogma of dispersing industry to develop the least likely places has been upturned. Development was brought to them. Investors are now setting up industries along the promising routes built. And yet, the potential of this country is not exhausted. Following these giant steps, we will continue to build. I will complete on schedule the projects that have been started. I'm not interested in taking credit. I want to build on success that's already happening. We will be presenting the public with a comprehensive infrastructure plan. 6 years could be just about enough time. No part of our country will be neglected. Progress will be made wherever there are Filipinos, so no investment is wasted. What we teach in our schools, the materials used must be rethought. I am not talking about history. I'm talking about the basics, the sciences, sharpening theoretical aptitude and imparting vocational skills, such as in the German example, alongside the national language with equal emphasis and facility in a global language, which we had and lost. Our teachers from elementary up are heroes fighting ignorance with poor paper weapons. Once we had an education system that prepared coming generations for more and better jobs. There is hope for a comeback. Vice President and soon-to-be Secretary of Education, Sara Duterte Carpio, will fit that mission to a T. What we teach in our schools, the materials used must be rethought. I am not talking about history. I'm talking about the basics, the sciences, sharpening theoretical aptitude and imparting vocational skills, such as in the German example, alongside the national language with equal emphasis and facility in a global language, which we had and lost. Our teachers from elementary up are heroes fighting ignorance with poor paper weapons. Once we had an education system that prepared coming generations for more and better jobs. There is hope for a comeback.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. Here's a recap of what we know about the country's headline inflation rate in June. Inflation jumped further to 5.1% in June, marking the highest level in over 3 years. Data from the PSA shows that food and non-alcoholic beverages accounted for more than half of last month's increase. The uptrend was also mainly driven by chicken and rice prices. Transport inflation, meanwhile, jumped a whopping 17.1% due to consecutive weeks of oil price hikes.
To give us more details on the first cabinet meeting of the Marcos administration, as well as give his take on the 6.1% inflation rate, we have with us live in the studio Social Welfare Secretary Erwin Tulfo. Secretary Tulfo, welcome.
Thank you.
To the big story.
Thank you for inviting me here, Robbie and Sean. Thank you.
Well, let's dive into it. Maybe give us at least something that we didn't see. Describe for us the atmosphere of the first cabinet meeting of President Marcos.
Well, the president was on time. It was set at 9 a.m., so he was there like 5 minutes before 9, and everybody was already there. Everybody started arriving like around 8 o'clock, an hour early. And then when he came in and we started the meeting, first to present was the Department of Finance, and then followed by the Department of Education, and then or DICT, and then Education and Transportation, and then Agriculture.
And those sort of line up naman with the press briefing that the President later on gave to the media. Finance, inflation problems, everything is going up. And then education, he says he wants face-to-face classes by November.
Right.
Fully, di ba? Parang September mag-start ang phase-in. Hopefully by November, full na ang face-to-face classes. Nakatali na rin doon sa inflation problems with transportation and so on. Were there any other concerns that he brought up that seemed really urgent for you to attend to?
Actually, the digitalization of all government agencies, such as my department, the Department of Social Welfare, because the reason is like mas maganda kung digitalize, especially when it comes to ayuda, cash assistance, it will be quicker, and then you can see how many times, if people are cheating the government or not, and then so there will be no wastage in the funds of the government. So another thing was that's for the DICT, and then another thing was talking about agriculture. We have to grow our own, like our food, rice, and all that. Tama yung report kanina na he doesn't want like kung maaari importation. He doesn't like that.
Actually, Erwin, earlier today, this afternoon, we reported that you actually want to have a review of those beneficiaries for that got, the 4-piece beneficiaries that got ayuda, because as you said, there were some people who got ayuda but were not on the list. What
Right.
happened there?
We're working on it now, Sean. I think we'll be finished. I already instructed my people to reevaluate, and I think give us until end of the month, because we believe we'll be able to take out these people, and there's like hundreds of thousands of them. Right now, there's like 4.6 million Filipinos in 4-piece program. We will take away like over several hundreds. I don't know yet, but there's really a lot of people in there that's not supposed to be there.
Apart from the estimate of people, they have an estimate of what the cost is.
Exactly. 15 million poor Filipinos. So there's a long list of people waiting in the waiting list na gusto nilang makapasok din doon. So we really have to remove kasi if we just wait for those people to graduate, there's only like about 20,000, 30,000 every year graduating. But now, because the instruction of the president was to really clean this list, I think we will have like a couple of hundreds at least will be taken out from this 4-piece beneficiary list.
Secretary Tulfo, speaking of cleaning, apart from having to purge this list of anomalous accounts, let's say, the president did also say one thing that we can control is the size and the cost of government. He said to all the cabinet members, if I got that right, he said, you tell me also what's the right size for your departments. Are there positions that we can get rid of? Is there a way to restructure so everything's more efficient? You've only been on the job less than a week, obviously, but do you have any idea about your particular bureaucracy?
Well, there's a lot of, in my office, there's a total of 29,000 employees. Only 3,000 are regular employees. The rest are like casuals, and then about 11 or 9,000 are contract of service, like the contract expires every 6 months, so I have to renew them every 6 months. Matter of fact, I renewed like about several thousand. Supposedly, their contract ended a couple of days ago. So I have to renew them until December 30th. Yes, there was instruction, but he was hesitant when he heard like streamlining. He said like, I think this is not the right time to do that. I mean, pandemic recovery. And he, parang ayaw niya na magbawas ng tao because naghihirap lahat eh.
So
Sige.
don't rock the boat so much.
Exactly.
All right, we'll continue our discussion with DSWD Secretary Erwin Tulfo after the break. Keep it here on One News, all sides, all the time.
Built more and better roads, produced more rice than all administrations before his. President Rodrigo Roa Duterte built more and better than all the administrations succeeding my father's. Much has been built, and so well, that the economic dogma of dispersing industry to develop the least likely places has been upturned. Development was brought to them. Investors are now setting up industries along the promising routes built. And yet, the potential of this country is not exhausted. Following these giant steps, we will continue to build. I will complete on schedule the projects that have been started. I'm not interested in taking credit. I want to build on success that's already happening. We will be presenting the public with a comprehensive infrastructure plan. 6 years could be just about enough time. No part of our country will be neglected. Progress will be made wherever there are Filipinos, so no investment is wasted. What we teach in our schools, the materials used must be rethought. I am not talking about history. I'm talking about the basics, the sciences, sharpening theoretical aptitude and imparting vocational skills, such as in the German example, alongside the national language, with equal emphasis and facility in a global language, which we had and lost. Our teachers from elementary up are heroes fighting ignorance with poor paper weapons. Once we had an education system that prepared coming generations for more and better jobs. There is hope for a comeback. Vice President and soon-to-be Secretary of Education, Sara Duterte Carpio, will fit that mission to a T. What we teach in our schools, the materials used must be rethought. I am not talking about history. I am talking about the basics, the sciences, sharpening.
You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. Our big question tonight, saan naabot ang 100 pesos mo? Here's what netizens have to say.
Several motorists like Irvin say that 100 pesos is just enough to buy 1 liter of gasoline, while Orlando says the same amount can only buy him a one-way trip from Silang in Cavite to Alabang in Muntinlupa. Many netizens also said that these days, 100 pesos may not even be enough for 3 hearty meals. Romeo adds that with 100 pesos, he can only afford to buy 1 bangus and a kilo of bad rice. Some also lament that a 100 peso bill has almost no value in today's economy. But Blaise says that for those who think that 100 pesos is too little to have any value, he is more than willing to take the cash off of their hands. You may also continue to join us in the conversation. Simply use the hashtag #TheBigStory and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at OneNewsPH. Like earlier, comments or tweets will be featured as part of our agenda to include you, the public, in the big story.
And still with us here in studio is Social Welfare Secretary Erwin Tulfo. Secretary Tulfo, nakita mo naman yung mga tweets. Yeah. Wala na raw halaga yung 100 pesos.
Exactly.
In the first cabinet meeting, obviously, tuhog-tuhog lahat to, di ba? Parang finance, Department of Education, all hands on deck. And it all starts really with the rising prices of goods to the point that a lot of people are saying, baka naman pwedeng expand yung mga ayuda natin, di ba? What are your thoughts and what particularly is the role that DSWD you anticipate can play at this moment in time?
Actually, the concern kasi Robbie and Sean is like yung mga people below the poverty line. Yun ang focus ng DSWD. Yun yung kasing may funds eh. So we don't have funds. Aside from that, outside of that line, wala kaming funds for them right now. But I believe the government will be starting looking for funds for them. Pero for now, allotted lang sa DSWD are those people in 4Ps, yung mga needed assistance, emergency assistance like medical and burial assistance. Yun yung may pondo ang DSWD.
Right, but Erwin, with inflation, just to tie it in with our other big story tonight, right? Inflation at 6.1%. You were handing out 500 pesos in ayuda previously. That 500 pesos is now, quote-unquote, not 500 pesos anymore. So what about that? Is the priority to, increase the ayuda or to expand the beneficiaries?
You know what we did was like, yes, it's 500 pesos per month, but we increased it to like, we gave them for 2 months na, Sean. So we deposited in their cash cards 1,000 pesos, but still, that's for 2 months. Actually, the promise of the former administration was like 6 months, 500 pesos each month for 6 months. So nagbigay na namin itong for 2 months. But this is for April and May. April and May pa lang. So June and July wala pa. So that's the problem. And then of course the government will have to look for funds for that because it wasn't in the budget in the national budget the funds that we are giving out right now, the 500 peso ayuda because of the rising cost of prices and oil petroleum products.
So we're able to go ahead,
other than ayuda, talk to us about the other social safety nets that the government is considering. For example, nabanggit din ni President Marcos, libreng sakay program itutuloy, or there was a moment there that it was a bit confusing. Sinabi niya ililipat from the MRT to mga jeepneys. Pagkatapos sinabi niya, hindi pala, itutuloy yung libreng sakay, but we will create a program for the students, especially to anticipate them to coming back to face-to-face classes. Talk to us about that and any other social safety nets and support that may be considered.
As far as I could remember, the DOTR Secretary Jimmy Bautista was saying na we can still accommodate students, and then there was one, I think, in the Department of Finance who said like, I think we can still do that dahil hindi naman talaga ganun kalaki yung cost because yung kikitain ng gobyerno liliit. But then again, kasi libreng sakay lang naman yun, wala namang added cost sa operational expenses ng LRT or MRT was that. So they said like ituloy na lang for student. Then eventually siguro after 6 months magkakaroon na lang ng discounts.
Will there be any reallocations happening in the budget? We know it's a tedious process and a very complicated one, but will some, funds be reallocated to fund, these social safety net programs or perhaps expand the 4Ps or the ayuda?
Actually, not expand the 4Ps. What the president wanted and the marching order for DSWD is clean the list of the 4Ps kasi nga wastage. That's what he said, para maiwasan ang sayang na pondo na which we can use, the government can use in other projects or programs. And that's what we are doing right now at DSWD. We're trying to clean the list, and we're starting. And hopefully, in about 2 or 3 weeks, we'll come up with a list, and then we will come out. We will be taking out about 100,000 people out of that list. Kasi nga, we found out na they're not supposed to be there. I mean, receiving or accepting this benefits. Kasi nga parang niloloko lang nila. Ito yung sinasabi ng mga tao, Sean and Robbie, na may mga tindahan na yung mga anak is graduate, nurse na yung anak or engineer na how come they're still there. So yung neighbors nila na talagang dapat receiving, nagagalit, nagseselos, bakit hindi siya inaalis.
So natenga sila sa waitlist ngayon.
Exactly. Pero I promise our viewers right now who are on the waiting list, you will have your opportunity kasi we're cleaning it now. Marami-rami ho kaming aalisin. Ito po yung instruction sa akin. So just wait to, in about 3 weeks time, malilinis natin. Liliit po yung tatanggap ng 4-piece na from now, like around 4.4 or 4.6. Liliit ho yan, I promise. So yung mga nasa waiting list na matagal-tagal na, makakapasok po
Very
kayo.
quickly, Sec, only if you have if you have basis or authority to share this right now, but do you have an estimate of how big that yung mapupurga dyan?
Our people are still on the ground, but I get feedbacks now na marami-rami ho ito, Secretary, our director for the National Household Targeting Office is telling me like malaki-laki po ito, nasa 6 figures ho ito. So, kasi yung mga graduates we're used to, DSWD will say like, graduate is 20,000, 30,000 every year. And this one, medyo I was taken aback. I was surprised when he said like, nasa 6 figures. So, meaning to say, nasa 100,000 yun. So, we're waiting for the exact number though.
Okay, Secretary Tulfo, maraming salamat po. And that's the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Sean Yao. Masks on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.